finally, we're going to look at how you can align your planning with TM, which is really important during planning days because you have to make sure that you have enough members to do your planned exchanges. It sounds stupid if you think about it, but a lot of LCs actually forget that they need the right amount of members to do, to achieve the numbers in exchange they want to achieve. That doesn't mean that your team should be the biggest. For most IGIP LCs, the team size of 5 is perfect. But it means that you should pick the right members. TM can do that for you during recruitment. They know which competencies to look for. During recruitment, you should be involved in raising, so you shouldn't really be involved in recruitment at all. TM can do that for you, but you need to tell them how many you need. And to get to a feasible number of members, you have to again use your backwards planning, and which we just did basically. So you break down your realizations in matches, raises, and meetings and calls. How much do you have to do each week in September, October, and November? Meetings and calls. And to get there, of course, you have to use your conversion rates and your matching durations, because otherwise your planning won't make sense and your members will not have anything to work on during the semester, which would be a huge disappointment for them. So, plan your members correctly. So using this timeline, you set goals for each week that your members should achieve. Like an average member can sell and deliver at least 1 TN per semester. That means that he can only deliver 1 TN per semester and he should stop as soon as he has a raise. No, if he has a raise after a company meeting or something, he should just continue on doing sales as long as it's not too late. Because you have to push a lot in the beginning of the semester to have a pipeline for the rest of the semester. That's really important. So, that should be the focus. And another focus is that at least 1 TN could be way more than that. Like in the bigger LCs, usually one member can handle 4 or 5. Absolutely okay. Because then the member will feel challenged and he will feel a reward from being in contact with the company. So that's what you get. So backwards planning means breaking down your planned numbers in weekly goals and then calculating an appropriate amount of members that you need to handle the amount of work. So, for example, you calculate that to get the number of raises you need to do maybe 80 calls in October, for example. That means, one member can do 10 calls. You would need about 8 members, but 8 would already be a lot, so I would recommend maybe 6. Then you have also to keep in mind that you need people to deal with your current partners, people to build the relation and provide good partner management for them. So that's maybe another one. So make sure you do a member planning that's not just out of this world. So on the last day of the planning days, you should have filled out the planning tool completely. That doesn't mean that you don't change the planning tool afterwards. You have to check in every 2 weeks or at least every month. And check if you're still on track. If you're not on track, you have to revise your strategy. You should also have a concrete picture of your projects and how you want to work on your goals. That's also on a strategic level, but also really your numbers. You should have broken down your projects into action steps, like when do I need to call, should I have my company meetings, how many should I have, and how many members do I need for that. And then you can check and assess it with your EB on a weekly basis. That's important. And then, yeah, as I already said before, done a realistic HR planning with your VPTM. Of course, all of your other interfaces are also important, but during the planning days, it's really important that you check with your VPTM whether you're on track and whether you're aligned or not. And yeah, maybe play a bit with the member efficiency, because that way you can calculate like how many exchanges would I be doing per member, and is that feasible? Like, as I already said before, Mexico is complaining about the member efficiency rate of 4 TNs per member. And I think we should at least get there. And lastly, JDs. You should have JDs that make sense and bring clear learnings and development to your members. That I recommend having account manager TNs in your team. If you don't plan with too many exchanges, you don't really need a reception team, because reception is the task of the whole LC. So in the end, I just want to present you a couple of do's and don'ts. Do concentrate your activities on projects, on doing as much and as much high quality exchange as possible, meaning that you should question whether the projects that you come up during the planning days, actually contribute to exchange, or whether you are just doing them because you want to. There should be a clear connection to exchange at all times and in all the functions. Should support each other. So if you have trouble raising, because cold calling is usually a task members are not excited to do, but you have to make really clear to them that if they don't do the cold calling in the beginning of the semester, they won't have anything to work on for the rest of the semester. So it's basically creating the pipeline for them. So that's a way to motivate them, but you can also use the whole LC to raise TNs and do cold calling, and then send your members on the meeting later. Because that way you create enough input for your LC. Also, learn by doing. Don't wait for sales trainings to happen. Let your members go out there and as soon as possible. Even if your member doesn't really know how to sell or doesn't have the soft selling skills, that's not important. He can learn. Selling is a skill and not knowledge. He can read as much or he can do as many simulations as he wants to. The only way he's going to learn it is by going out to the companies and just trying to sell it. And if it doesn't work for the first time, that's okay, but because he still learns something. So that's really important. As I already said before, don't have a reception team if you don't reach at least 10 IGRPs per year. So because reception is the responsibility of the whole SC, of course you need somebody to take care of the aftermatch process. That's still the job of the account manager. And the legalities and the documents, that's in the hands of the account manager because he has the overview. But apart from that, reception can be spread out over the whole LC, because that way we also make everyone in the LC have a touch point with the internationality that we have in ISAC. Also, don't have more members in IGRP than planned exchanges, because it's inefficient and a waste of resources. You can use the members in a far more efficient way. And you have to also consider that you're putting in a lot of effort as a VP to manage your team. I feel like that's something a lot of VPs underestimate in the beginning of their term, because they don't really know what to expect. But you try to have as few members as possible who work and really efficiently and do as much exchange as possible, because it's going to be a better team experience, because you grow together more easily. Also, don't wait for your NUIs, because if you start raising in November when you have your NUIs, it's already too late, because you're not going to have the realization at the end of the semester. You still have to match it during the holidays, so that's something you would have to do yourself, and your members are not going to be there. So your team should already be in a high performance phase when the members arrive, because then they get accustomed to that culture and they also start performing really quickly. So that's that. Also, again about the sales trainings, the selling soft skills and how to sell stuff is only 30%, or maybe the extra 20% you push that your team can get if it's already performing. It's way more important that you know our product. For that you can watch the educations on our sub-products in IT and business, because that way you know what the companies are going to ask you, you know how to answer that, and that's the most important part. And I mean, the worst thing that could happen if you don't really know how to sell and you don't have the soft skill for that is that the company is going to say, okay, they're students. They don't have having as much experience as somebody who's been working in sales for the last 20 years, of course. So companies will understand that. Don't be afraid. So much for this presentation. If you should have any questions concerning the planning process, contact the LCDST. If it's about functional work in IGIP, you can consult your cluster consultant, but you can also just write us, which would be the mail addresses given here. Thank you for your attention.